1,000 centuries. You don't know where you land. It's so dark in mythology. Treasures of history to be found. Hear the legends of time. All the handiworks remain. Only dream away. Orion, Orion,
Now, before we begin, I realised too late that I should have mentioned this in the last video. The black and white era didn't spell the end of the destroyed episodes. Many early Pertwee stories were also destroyed. We have copies of all of them, but some of them are less than perfect. When you see episodes with washed out colour, these are black and white copies. The Doctor Who restoration team invented a new type of restoring where you scan black and white copies of colour originals and recreate the original colour. Pretty much. This process was invented specially for these episodes. So, on to Season 8. Season 8 ran from the 2nd of January to the 19th of June 1971. It's 25 episodes long and they're spread among 5 stories. So the mix is a little better than last season. The show has really settled into its new season length, almost half as short as what Hartnell and Troughton had to deal with. Ironic that thus far the Doctors tended to get fitter as the seasons got shorter. Anyway, Liz Shaw was replaced between seasons, so she doesn't even get a farewell scene, and her replacement is the second of the 4 iconic classic Who companions, Jo Grant. Jo is probably the stupidest companion thus far, except for Dodo. In some weird ways, she set the scene for Rose later on. She's thick, blonde, lasted for a long time, and there's evidence that the Doctor fell in love with her. She's also much better than Rose. I'm not a massive fan of her, but dipping your head in lye is also better than Rose. I'm really sorry about crapping on the new show. I'm trying to be fair and neutral, but this stuff just seeps out. Anyway, this season the regular cast grew to 6 with the introduction of Captain Yates and, of course, the Master, the first recurring antagonistic Time Lord. He's apparently not at all based on the War Chief from the War Games, even though they're clearly the same character with different names. Because of the way character ownership was handled, it's been suggested that they created their own takeoff of the War Chief rather than pay money to use the character again. Now, I haven't seen any evidence of that, but the Master is clearly the War Chief, regardless of what they intended. Sure, in books and stuff they develop the characters more, but going from the TV show and the TV show alone, they are more similar than many of the Doctors are to each other. So, the Master. If you're only familiar with the John Sim Master, then you have not seen the Master. You saw a Riddler impersonator calling himself the Master. Roger Delgado is the real deal. He's suave, charming, and ruthless. There are no fucking drums here. Anyway, on to the first story. Terror of the Autons is 4 episodes long and it's the direct sequel to Spearhead from Space. It's the last time the Autons would turn up in the TV show until Rose with Christopher Eccleston. The Master has arrived on Earth and plans to destroy the world by awakening the Nestine consciousness, creating Autons and controlling them. And afterwards, partying with his plastic pals who are fun to be with.
Your plastic pal is fun to be with.
This story introduces lots of lightly redesigned stuff like the new unit uniforms, which thankfully look less like spacesuits this season, and a redesigned laboratory for the Doctor. It also introduced some funky new Auton shit for the kids to get terrified of. A killer armchair, a doll, and worst of all, plastic flowers that don't even come with any mind control drugs or a fascist detergent company. If that doesn't make any sense, do yourself a favour and watch some Adam Adamant Lives. It's basically, imagine if Verity Lambert had created the Pertwee era instead of the Hartnell. Now, Terror of the Autons is a bit like a pilot to Pertwee Mark II. I said that Season 7 was a good jumping on point, and I meant it. But so is this. And I'll get this over with now. The Master is in every story this season. It's just one of those things that happens when you make your recurring villain a main character. It's not really a bad thing because Roger Delgado is so good at it. It just kinda destroys the mystery of who could that devilish man that looks a bit like Roger Delgado be? Even if I didn't pay much attention, I'd lay odds that it wasn't Mavic Chen for the Daleks' master plan. The second story of the season is the 6-part Mind of Evil. Now, in the majority of stories, Unit's purview is pretty much protecting the Earth against alien invasions, but in this they actually get involved in international espionage. It's weird, I know. Whoever would have thought that a group called the United Nations Intelligence Task Force would actually act like a task force in the area of intelligence involving several nations who aren't really that united? This story is about a machine that's been designed to cure criminality by removing negative impulses. Of course, it can also make your fears come to life and kill you. It's the usual, your mind makes it real crap. In a nice bit of continuity to Inferno, the Doctor's fear is uncontrollable fire. And the Master's also attempting to kickstart World War III by hijacking a missile. To do this, he releases his own private army of prisoners and controls a high-up Chinese diplomat while the Doctor is captured in a prison. If you take chunks of this plot and rearrange it a bit, you could have the story to The Dark Knight Rises. Now, the Doctor has been known to casually name-drop figures from history that he knows, and this Doctor's no exception. He mentions he met Sir Walter Raleigh. But he also mentions in this that he was a good friend of Chairman Mao, which is a bit more problematic. I wonder if the 16th Doctor will casually name-drop that he was friends with Saddam Hussein. Anyway, Story 3 is The Claws of Axos. This four-parter is one of the less famous stories to be directly referenced in the new series.
You and me, all the things we've done. Axons, remember the Axons? And the Daleks?
Ah yes, remember the time we teamed up to defeat those things with the obsession with the colour yellow? The Axons are a little bit weird. A ship of theirs lands and they offer a material called Axonite, which they say can pretty much do anything. Unfortunately, they're all just parts of a larger Axon being, and the Axonite will just suck energy and crap from everything on Earth. 3 stories, 3 attempts to destroy the world. The show is on a roll. With the Master's help, the Doctor is finally able to fix his TARDIS. Alas, the Time Lord's power goes beyond that of simply breaking the TARDIS.
No, obviously the Time Lords have programmed the TARDIS always to return to Earth. It seems that I'm some kind of a galactic yo-yo.
One of the greatest final lines of any story ever. I think you'll agree. The Axon's true form is one of the better-looking aliens in this era of the show. They look like Man-Thing crossbred with Baron Harkonnen. Remember this stuff when you see the evil jelly molds in a few seasons' time. The 4th story is Colony in Space, a story that began the Time Lord's long, dark path to utter witlessness, which resulted in them forgetting that automated guns exist in the last day. They have lost something called the Doomsday Weapon, and they have forgotten that they have a secret service, and the capability to destroy absolutely fucking anything, because they figure the only man who can get it back for them is the Doctor. This is Pertwee's first off-world adventure, and thus is the beginning of the end of the unit family, and the ensemble feel of the show. Though it'll be years before it's totally gone. Much of the distinctive Pertwee-era stuff like easy access to military equipment is gone here. It's pretty much a generic 6-parter in space with a moral about colonialism. Still, even in the far future and across the universe, the Master manages to be behind everything. I do like the name of the story, though. It's like they've been stuck on Earth for so long they feel the need to have space in the title in case we forgot it exists. So, from the least generic Pertwee story thus far to the second least generic Pertwee story thus far, The Demons. It took them 8 seasons, but Doctor Who is finally doing Satanism. This is the last 5-parter, and one of the most beloved stories in the entire Pertwee era. Now stop me if you've heard this before. Demons are actually horned aliens that have influenced human myth and how we see evil, and yeah, this is pretty much the Satan Pit before the Satan Pit was the Satan Pit. The Master has a gang of cultists and has been summoning Azal, the demon that influenced life on Earth in the way that the Satan Pit said that the Beast did. The Master hopes that Azal will either give him control of the Earth or destroy it. Either one's a victory, really. Also, Roger Delgado has excellent taste in music. And this is the story where Unit infamously took on a small stone gargoyle played by a guy in a leotard.
Shot for the wings there. 5 rounds rapid.
This is really not a story you want to check out if you can't handle less than stellar special effects. That applies to all Classic Who really, but this in particular. If, however, you like the original Wicker Man, then you might like this. It's got a very similar feel. Now, I'm not saying that paganism and Satanism are the same thing, but this story in part seems to think that they are. Season 8 is a lot like Season 7, but it's a little bit more accessible. The stories are shorter, there's a bit more variety, and the companion is back to being stupid. In short, it feels a little bit more like Doctor Who than the last season did. Even if the last season was better than this one. Overused or not, Roger Delgado was simply great as the Master, and the recurring characters give the show a sense of community that it never really had until this era, and it wouldn't have again until 2005. Join me next time for Season 9, when someone other than the Master will be the villain, the Ice Warriors will return, and we'll see another Atlantis.